Hi, welcome to Soul and Vibration. It has been a while since I've made a video, but I'm back and I have a lot of new content for you guys. I wanted to hit it off or start off with a video about empaths. I wanted to talk about that because I learned a few years back, like say maybe in 2010, that I was an empath. And once I learned that, it has been an amazing journey, and things like emotionally, life just gets easier. Before knowing I was an empath, most of my life I suffered from people pleasing and emotional invasions. And most of you guys could relate to that. And when I say emotional invasions, as an empath, you know that you tend to feel other people's emotions as if they're yours. I also like to refer to myself as a highly sensitive person because us empaths are extremely sensitive to not only to the emotions of the people around us, to smells, loud noises, and just energy within places. As an empath, I find that I can pick up on the energy of people who are far away. They don't have to just be at an arm's reach away. They could be thousands of miles away. And if they're thinking about me in an intense way, I can feel it. And I'm sure a lot of you empaths can relate to that. So I came up with 11 signs to help you decide whether you are an empath or not. All 11 signs are ways, or all 11 signs are things I've experienced in my personal life and still experience, and those signs help me to realize that I am an empath, along with other information that I've learned from reading, watching videos, and stuff like that. Keep in mind that these 11 signs aren't all of the signs that exist to tell you whether you are an empath or not, but this is just some of them. So to make this easy for myself, I went ahead and wrote them down in my phone. So the first one is, do you avoid crowds and groups of people as much as possible? For me as an empath, I like to avoid crowds and groups of people because whenever I'm in a crowd or even a small enough group of people, it tends to feel really loud, even if the group itself isn't loud. And I feel like it feels loud to me because I can feel my attention being pulled in many different directions. My attention being pulled meaning that, say if one person is really sad, I'm gonna pick up on their sadness, or another person is anxious, I'm gonna pick up on their anxiousness. Just whatever these people are going through, it's almost like I'm a satellite and they're all sending signals, and it's super loud because I'm picking up all different signals at once. I remember my first time experiencing Reiki. I went to a meetup group and we sat in a circle. It was about 10 people in the group. And we sat in a circle and meditated while the Reiki practitioners, I think that's what they're called, run around to each person doing their thing. So while I'm sitting in the group and trying to meditate, I remember all of a sudden feeling different pains and discomforts in different parts of my body. And it didn't make sense to me until at the end when everyone was sharing their experience, different people was talking about the relief that they got from the Reiki people doing their magics, and talking about the different parts of their body that they felt the relief in. Say one person had a back pain, another one had something wrong with their knee, and something with their ankle or their head. As they were given their testimony about their experience and how the Reiki worked for them, I remember getting confirmation like, oh my God, this one mentioned their back I remember my back hurting in the meditation. This one mentioned their ankle I remember my ankle feeling sore. So basically in that Reiki session, I was like a sponge absorbing everything that everyone was going through at that moment. So as an empath, it makes it a little bit hard for me to do a lot of group things because I end up picking up on everything that's happening around me. Number 2, do you avoid watching news or bad news? For me, I find the news to be a bit draining. I find the news to be draining because automatically, of course, when I hear the sad stories and the negativity going on, I automatically want to help. And as empaths, we're natural helpers. We want to make the world a better place. We want to see the people around us happy so that we can be happy. And whenever I watch bad news, it makes me feel a bit hopeless and sad because there's nothing that I can do about it. You know, I prefer to, me as an individual, not speaking about all empaths, I am action oriented, and if I see something that needs to be done and I can do something about it, I'm going to try to do something about it. So watching the news and hearing all this negativity that I can't do anything about is a bit exhausting and overwhelming. For me, it feels like when I see a bird covered in oil or something like that from the ocean, it's like the negativity just overwhelms me and it takes a long time to shake it off. Just like it takes some time and effort to get all that gook off that bird. That's how I feel. I have to make an active effort to just shake all that negativity off of myself. Number 3, have you ever been in the presence of an animal and was able to pick up on their emotions? So for me growing up, we didn't have pets because my mom was allergic. But as I got older and started hanging out with friends with pets, that's when I started realizing that I am sensitive to the energy and the emotions of pets too. And not only do I feel what the animals are going through, whether they're happy or sad, I could look in their eyes and the look in their eyes confirm what I'm feeling. In August 16, 2006, my 15-year-old client inspired my vegan journey. My vegan journey started August 16, 2006. That day I stopped eating meat completely. Kicking dairy took a little bit longer, but he told me, we were having this deep conversation, and he told me to go check some information out at PETA.org. And when I went to that website, immediately it was empathy that made it hard for me to ever eat meat again since that day. So for me, picking up on the energy of the animals is very similar to picking up on the energy of humans. It's energy. I remember one time I went with a friend to her cousin's house, and it was my first time going there, and I met her cousin's little dog, and immediately the dog took to me. At first I was a little bit nervous because I didn't have any experience with pets. So at first I was a little bit nervous, but then I got comfortable because this little dog was super friendly and just super persistent for me to play with her. So after a while, I got really comfortable and petting her and whatnot. And I noticed that she stuck by me. Even my friend was pointing out how she's like in a guarded position around me. Like she sat near me as if I was her owner and in a guarded position, like she was guarding me. So I noticed my friend's my friend's cousin's son, small son, he's a small boy, maybe like 3 years old, he came into the room. And immediately I felt the energy of the dog change. It's like she became a little anxious and a little fearful. So I told my friend that I feel like the young boy's being mean to the dog because I can tell that she's afraid of him whenever he came around. So she shared this with her cousin, and her cousin had a talk with her son and asked him if he's being mean to the dog. And he told his mom the dog is a bad girl. So long story short, he witnessed his father being a little bit aggressive with this dog, picked up that behavior and thought that it was normal to be aggressive with her. So that's just an example of how we can pick up on the emotions of animals. I have other stories about a friend's dog that was sick, and I was able to pick up that the dog wasn't doing well, even though my friend who is the dog's owner didn't really notice what I was noticing. So yes, that's number 3, picking up on the energy of animals. Number 4, are you a magnet for narcissistic people? So I realized that I've been a magnet for narcissistic people for my whole entire life, up until 2 years ago when I learned what a narcissist is. My intuition is what helped wake me up to that reality of narcissism. And the reason why empaths are magnets to narcissistic people is because we are like supplies. For us empaths, it is very important for the people around us to be happy, because we can feel what they're going through. So if they're happy, we are happy. So naturally, we end up in these relationships with narcissistic people that consist of us giving and them taking. And if you're not aware of this kind of relationship, you might find yourself getting extremely stressed out, and sometimes this translates into physical illness because of the exhaustion and everything that your body is going through. And it is easy for us to not even realize that, because we're so focused on making sure that everyone is okay. You know, so when I realized the dynamics of my relationships and friendships and stop being a fuel to narcissistic people, I realized that those relationships fell off. It's like they couldn't survive without me feeding into them. And don't get me wrong, when I talk about narcissistic people, I read that, you know, it is healthy for all of us to have a level of narcissism. And I truly believe that, because I feel like that's almost like connected to our ego and our ambition and stuff like that. But the kind of narcissism that I'm talking about is when people completely lack empathy. And I feel like when people completely lack empathy, that's when they're dangerous. So narcissistic people are dangerous because they lack empathy. They don't know what it is like to put themselves in your shoes and sympathize with you or anyone else. All they know how to do is just take. So as empaths, we are naturally attracted to these people, because we just want to give, please, and take care, and they take and we give, and it's a very unhealthy relationship dynamic. But through intuition, you can learn more about yourself and pretty much put a stop to this, because it's impossible for you to make something better if you don't realize that it's not working. Number 5, you can read people. Our thoughts trigger emotions, and as an empath, after a while, you can connect the different emotions to words, and eventually that becomes telepathy. After a while, you can pick up on different emotions, and those emotions translate into words, and you can start to pretty much read people's thoughts. I believe that's how telepathy works, translating emotions into words. So as an empath, it is easy for us to read people because, you know, some people's emotions are super loud, louder than others. So it's like obvious and all over them. And they don't even have to be in front of you sometimes. They can be on the phone, on the other end of a conversation, and you could just feel the energy coming from them and translate those energies into words and just know what's going on with them. So number 6 is, have you ever visited a place or space and can feel the energy that is present there? For me, all the time. I can walk into someone's home and just feel the kind of vibe and how the interaction works in that home. Or walk into a space and just know what kind of people live in that space. Like when I was choosing an apartment, there was an option for my apartment that I'm presently in and another apartment. And I wanted to choose my apartment also based on the numbers and what they add up to, because I believe that the numbers on your home and what they add up to tells a lot about the energy that will manifest within that home. I believe that homes and spaces are like portals, and the energy, the numbers on the door kind of tell like the transformation, or where that space will take you. And I remember when I walked into the other apartment that was available, immediately I smelled smoke, even though they had new carpets down and painting on the wall. I smelled smoke, and the people I was with said they didn't smell any smoke. Another thing, the energy in that space just felt very active. Like whoever lived there pretty much had a strong number 5 energy about them. They didn't stay still. They were always in and out. When I told this to the person that was showing me the space, she was pretty shocked because a police officer lived in that apartment and she was never home. She was always in and out. Her boyfriend also stayed with her, but they were pretty much, she said they had ADD type of vibe. It's like very anxious people that didn't stay still at all. And I felt the movement in the space, even though it was empty, new painting, new carpet, everything. I felt it, smelled it all. So as an empath, we could definitely feel all that. Another story is when I was visiting a friend in the Bay Area. I was taking a tour of my friend's home, and I went from room to room just checking the space out. And when I got to the back room and walked in the back room, I walked out, and then I felt like walking back in. And the energy that I felt in that room was sadness, loneliness, depression, and sickness. It's just like, it's like the space was just submerged with all these different emotions, but they weren't happy emotions, and it just felt so thick. And I told my friend, I said to my friend, whose room is this, or who stayed in this room? Like the energy in this room seems really thick and kind of sad, and like it makes me want to lay down and take a nap. And he laughed and shook his head, because that room, before he bought the house, the people who own the house took care of their sick mom in that room, and that's the room she stayed in before she died. I don't remember if she died in that room, but pretty much all the way up until the end, that was her room. And then his last relationship, that's the room that his ex-girlfriend also stayed in whenever they would fight. And for 3 months, when she was trying to find somewhere to go, she stayed in that back room also until she found a shelter that would help her with her addictions. So as an empath, you can walk into a room and just immediately feel what happened before, or what that space, what kind of energy that space holds. Number 7, do you know when you're being lied to? So as empaths, we are walking lie detectors, and this is a good thing, but it could be very heartbreaking and sad whenever you are being lied to by the people that you really care about. See, for me, for a while, I had a bad habit of putting the people that I care about on pedestals, even though they didn't ask to be there. And whenever they would lie to me, it would crush me. And I mean, they're human, you know, people are human, and sometimes, you know, people lie for different reasons. But yes, it would crush me because I could feel when they're lying. Because based on my experience, whenever someone is lying, in some cases, I could feel them smirking. And it's like, you're like, what do you mean? It's like, think of when you smirk and the feeling you get when you smirk. It's like, even though their face looks blank, I can feel them smirking on the inside. In other cases, some people, they'll become anxious. And the anxiousness that they give off also gives off this feeling of resistance that's like a push away. And some people might say, well, what if they're nervous and their level of the anxiousness that they're giving off has to do with them being nervous because what you guys are talking about. As an empath, you can feel the difference. There's a difference with being nervous and a difference with lying. It's almost like the nervousness that a person gives off when they're lying, it feels like it's a nervousness and a feeling like the person wants to hide. So for me, this was very helpful when I was opening my salon, and when I was doing business with different people. Different people would come in and, you know, maybe they'll basically give me a quote for different prices and things like that. And sad to say, sometimes when you're a woman doing business, some people feel like you're not smart enough and will try to take advantage. And I am blessed to have good intuition, and that is what I rely on a lot of the times when I don't have all the facts or know the details on how things work. A person will come in front of me and we're having a conversation, and even though their face might be blank, I'm feeling what they're saying. I don't go by the words people use. I go by how they feel. So whenever I'm doing a business negotiation, I use my intuition and empathetic skills. Hope I'm saying that correctly. I use the empathy and highly sensitive way about me to know when I'm making the right decision. Because another thing that I'll feel whenever I'm making a decision and it's not right, I'll feel a level of resistance. It's almost like I can feel this invisible energy pushing me back as I try to move forward. And in every situation where that happened, my intuition was on point. So I love that. Number 8 is, do you know what people are going through even if they dress it up really well? And what I mean by that is, you have some people who, you know, like all people, like we might be going through things and we might not be ready to share that information with other people. So we, you know, we pretend like everything is perfect. We, you know, carry ourselves nicely and we walk around with a smile on our face and just say everything is great. And for me, I see right through that. And in the beginning, before I knew I was an empath and I can pick up on what people are saying, I would experience a lot of confusion because a person would look one way, and while they are speaking and expressing themselves, what I'm getting from them is totally different. So like I've said before, I don't go by what people say. I go by how their words feel. And that also goes for people who, you know, like I said, with number 7, being lied to, you know, even though a person might look the part, you could just feel what they're really going through. Like a person could look like they're extremely successful and doing well, but as an empath, you can feel the sadness beneath it all if there's sadness. You can feel the fear beneath it all if there's fear. So as empaths, it's very important for us to strengthen our intuition so that whenever what you're seeing and feeling don't match up, you learn to trust yourself and know that what you're seeing could be an illusion. You know, we learn to trust what we're feeling. Number 9, are you sensitive to social media? So I am very sensitive to social media, and that's why in the past I've always find myself in and out. One minute I'm on, next minute I'm off. Because for me, social media feels like being in a crowd, a crowded place. And some people might say, what do you mean? I mean, you're quiet, say you're quiet at home in your own private space and you're looking through your phone on social media. How is that loud or feel like you're in a crowded space? See, as empaths, you could look at a person's picture, and this goes back to number 8, you know, someone dressing up their lives or a situation to seem like it's one thing, but you can feel the opposite. So for me on social media, I could be scrolling through posts and just feel people's sadness. It's like, even though they're posed up and, you know, they look happy and everything look well, I could just feel the truth underneath it all. So for me, social media can be a bit much sometimes, and I often need to take breaks. That's why I don't allow notifications from social media to come to my cell phone. I feel like whenever I go online, that's when I'll interact, and when I come offline, I'm offline. So for most empaths, or for empaths, social media could be a bit loud and overwhelming, as if you're in a crowded space. Number 10, are you often exhausted in the presence of anxious and extroverted people? So for me, people who are unaware of their own anxieties and emotions are like psychic vampires. And the reason why they're like psychic vampires is because they are giving off all this energy and they are totally unaware of it. Where if they were aware of what they were feeling, then they could put their energies in check. So for me, as an empath, being in the presence of a person who is extroverted, meaning that they need to feed off my energy so they could feel energized, or a person that is anxious all the time, it feels like what I call an emotional invasion. So imagine you are home in your room, relaxing, and just relaxing, having a nice, pleasant time, and all of a sudden someone starts playing an annoying alarm sound through speakers, and it's like you go from relaxing to all of a sudden this loud, overwhelming noise that you feel like you can't escape. And it's like this noise is causing you to feel anxiety because it's just so loud. For me, that's how it feels when I'm around people who are anxious or extroverted, who are unaware of their own emotions. It just feels extremely loud. It just feels like everything inside of me is vibrating, and it makes me even nauseous sometimes because it's just so aggressive. So the people like that in my life, I try to take them in doses. I love them dearly, but being around them too much exhausts me. It's almost like running a small marathon, being in their presence. Number 11, do you have a hard time putting yourself first? Okay, so as an empath, because I feel like I am constantly being invaded by other people's emotions, it is very easy for me to put other people's needs above my own, because I feel like if they're, and I keep saying this over and over again, but I feel like this is what most empaths go through and they're not aware. I feel like we feel like if others are okay, we'll be okay. So that's why it's easy for empaths to put other people's emotions over their own and don't even realize they are, because it's like if they're around other people, it's like they're constantly experiencing what others are experiencing, so they totally forget about themselves. So I believe when someone is unaware of what they are going through, there is nothing you can do to help them or make things better. Self-awareness is a superpower, and it is important for us to become aware of our challenges and work on them. It's like you have to realize that something is broken in order to give it your attention and fix it, or realize that something isn't working to give it your attention to make it better. So as an empath, we need to learn that trying to fix other people is like pouring into a cup with a hole in the bottom. It's just a waste of time and waste of energy. I believe as empaths, it has to come to a point in your life where you realize that the best thing you can do for yourself and the people around you is to create some distance, create some healthy boundaries. Because again, if people are unaware of their own challenges, there is nothing you can do to make them aware of them until they are ready. And hindering them is not making anything better, but putting large amounts of unnecessary stress on yourself and stopping other people from their own evolutions and their transformations. So as empaths, I believe we tend to be codependents. And that's why we are naturally drawn to narcissistic people, and we support bad behavior, because in our mind we are helping when in fact we're not making things better. So I believe as an empath, it is the best thing you can do for yourself is to learn to focus on yourself. And I feel like that starts with meditation. That starts with time alone. For me as an empath, I spend a lot of time alone feeding myself. I didn't always do this. I used to spend so much energy running behind the people that I care about, wanting to make their lives better. After a while, I realized that the people that I would constantly pour into didn't even really respect my opinion anymore, or never really did, because they took it for granted because I was always there and always available. And these people weren't looking to make any changes in their lives anyway. They were just looking for supply, for someone to give them undivided attention and pour into them, and that was me. And I wasn't making anything better in the process. And in some situations, I only exhausted myself and negatively affected my health. So I believe if you are an empath and the 11 signs that I shared connect with you, then it is good that you know you're an empath, and it's time to start pouring into yourself and learning more about who you are, what your strengths are, and how you can share this with other people that will appreciate your gifts, not people that will take it for granted, not because they're doing so intentionally, but they're not in the place that they need to be in order to receive all that you have to offer. Thank you so much for sitting through this video. I know it was pretty long. If you are an empath and you are desperately trying to learn more about yourself, I'm sure you made it to the end. I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the bottom on how to strengthen your intuition, because I believe as empaths, intuition is everything, and we need to learn to strengthen it and depend on it. Thank you for visiting Soul and Vibration. I hope this information was helpful. If you would like to learn more, please visit my website at soulandvibration.com. The link for that will also be below. Have a great week.